trying to see if there's going to be a third or, additional people.
안녕하세요. 특종의 발견입니다. 저는 SBS 김수영 기자입니다. 오늘은 전 국민을 충격에 빠뜨린 제주항공 여객기 참사에 대한 궁금한 점을 짚어보도록 하겠습니다. 오늘은 미 공군과 아메리칸 에어라인에서 50년 가까이 근무한 경험이 있는 항공 전문가 리처드 레비 씨와 인터뷰를 준비했습니다. Could you introduce yourself to Korean audience?
My name is Richard Levy, and I was a captain and a pilot for American Airlines for 41 years. And before flying commercially for American Airlines, I flew in the United States Air Force, a transport airplane called the C-130. And now I'm retired, and I work at another major airline where I instruct, coincidentally, on the 737. So I'm very familiar with the 737-800, which was involved in this accident, as you know. I'm glad to be with you, and our thoughts go out to all the Koreans for this terrible situation.
Footage of the aircraft belly landing on the runway has been released. Did you notice anything unusual while watching the video?
Well, yes, the two major observations are, one, the landing gear is not extended. And that is a very unusual. You would never land an airplane, a 737 or a large airplane that I flew in my last 15 years or so, with the landing gear up. You have many alternate methods to lower the landing gear, even in an emergency situation, especially the 737. The left hydraulic system lowers the landing gear normally in the 737, but if that fails, then you have a backup system where you can manually pull handles in the cockpit and lower each of the main gears and the nose gear. But it takes time to do that. And the other point that I noticed was that the flaps were not extended at all. And for that reason, you notice they had a very high speed along the runway before touchdown. They were floating, and there's a term that we use, a little bit of a technical term. It's called ground effect. That means that you're basically riding on a cushion of air. They were going so fast. Also, I noticed they landed what appears to be maybe halfway down the runway. You never do that.
And what is the flap exactly?
Good question. Flap exactly is when you are flying commercially and you're sitting behind the wing and you look out to the right or left side, depending where you're sitting, of course, you'll see flaps, part of the wing coming out backwards to the rear and then down. Those flaps, in essence, to make it very simple, Sean, makes the wing wider and bigger so that you have more lift and you can fly slower. What's the advantage for landing? And what's the advantage of flying slower at landing? Use less runway. This runway at this airport is about 9,100 feet long. That's about 2,800 meters or so. For a 737, plenty of runway, but not plenty of runway if you go halfway down the runway. So they went around, and we call that a missed approach. They have a problem with the right engine. The flaps were out, not fully, they were out for an approach. That's the time normally in training, if you have an emergency, you leave the airport, fly up to a certain altitude, and you say to your flying partner, you fly, I'll run the checklist, and we fix it. They were on the ground moments later without flaps and landing gear. So somehow the flaps on a missed approach.
Okay. As you said, witness account indicate that a bird strike occurred. Is it common for such incident to disable the landing gear?
No, never. Never say never, but no. The answer is no. The landing gear is operated again by hydraulic systems on the airplane. And if you have, as I mentioned a moment ago, a problem with the hydraulics, then you have ways to manually lower the landing gear in this airplane, the 737. Very easy. There's a little bitty door in the cockpit. You open up the little door and pull 3 handles for the right main gear, the left main gear, and nose gear. But it takes, I don't know, 5 to 6 minutes. And maybe it wasn't, because what we noticed from the videos is some smoke, puffs of smoke coming out of the right engine. That could be a bird strike. Normally that does not destroy an engine. The bird would go through the engine. Sometimes it would destroy the engine. And the smoke could be caused by what we call a compressor stall. Very simple explanation of that for your viewers: air not going smoothly through the engine. And it's hot temperature coming out of the engine, so that created some smoke. But to answer your question, the birds, in my opinion, had nothing to do with the landing gear at this point.
At the end of the runway, there was a concrete barrier-like structure, reportedly a localizer for guiding landings. Many are questioning why it was built with concrete. Are such concrete structures common in U.S. airport as well?
No. Now, I've flown to many U.S. airports. I've not flown to every single one of them. There's too many. I know you know that. But I've never seen the localizer antenna built with cement block. Just the opposite, in not every American airport by any means, but many American airports, they have a type of overrun. That means material at the end of the runway in case an airplane has an emergency and lands long for whatever reason and leaves the runway. It goes into almost something that's like it's sand or cement, soft cement, where the airplane stops and sinks. It destroys the airplane. Passengers are perfectly safe. There were lots of factors. We call that the error chain, where one mistake, one error, one problem led to another. There's not one thing and one problem in this accident. There's multiple problems along the way. So now, when the airplane was landing without left the runway and went into the cement structure, that's what caused the fire explosion. If the airplane had gone into water or to a soft area of trees and dirt, yeah, the airplane had been hurt, maybe destroyed, but there would not have been a fire.
Do you see the possibility of a structure defect in the aircraft, or could improper maintenance be a factor?
Is that the airplane was in great shape. Remember, he had just flown up from Thailand up north 3 hours or 4 hours, whatever the flight time is. But I don't see a manufacturing problem. And at this point, I don't see any maintenance problems at this moment at all.
How is the investigation conducted using the black box?
Well, the United States has been invited to participate. The National Transportation Safety Board, we call it the NTSB, they routinely read these black boxes. The CVR, cockpit voice recorder, is intact. That's going to be so helpful. If the CVR will be read immediately, my guess in the next within the next week. So my guess now depends on this damage on the flight data recorder. We're talking a week, 10 days. Now they're going to read it and they're going to not right away release the findings. They will eventually release the findings. They will become public. But initially, they'll need to be studied and talked among all the participants in the investigation.
This accident has deeply shocked Korea. What systems do you think Korea should reinforce to prevent future aviation accidents?
Seoul has an excellent aviation system in the Seoul, Korea area. I know this is not Seoul, but the Korean authorities are superb. The air traffic control, the airport, and have 100% confidence in it. But we do go back to the good question you raised a moment ago about this localizer antenna. They will rebuild this localizer antenna. Believe me, they definitely will. In my opinion, that is.